If I'm driving an SUV and you driving a small car, I'm sort of looking down on you.
So the car culture in Durban is out of this world.
If you're driving a luxury car, people become friendlier, right? People want to associate themselves with you. They become more respectful as well.
So when you drive a car, you want to hear that the
Verpa.
Exactly. So these EVs, you drive sex.
So your friends could say, hey, have you seen that guy's car? Rather than, have you seen that guy's car? You know what I mean?
WesBank talks finance.
You are listening to WesBank Talks Finance, and I'm Lebogang Gawaketsi. Today, we're wondering, does your car symbolize success? Is it a statement or a symbol of status? I've got 3 guests in studio, and they are each going to share or tell us their story. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
All
us.
good. Aldayne, Mohau, and Lufefe, thank you for your time. And I'm looking forward to this conversation with the 3 of you.
Same.
Yeah.
Aldayne,
Hi, how are you?
all good.
Thanks for having me on the show. My name is Aldayne Ramsamy. I cover the automotive car scene in South Africa, and I'm also a marketing team member for an L&D organization in South Africa.
Welcome. Thank you. Mohau?
Hi, so I'm Mohau Vuma, and I'm a former television producer for Ignition TV, and I'm currently an automotive content creator.
Welcome.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Lufefe.
And I'm Lufefe Mayekiso from Motozar TV, Africa's leading Formula One fan channel.
Welcome. Thank you. Now, to start, and this is to all of you, when did each of you realize, the pressure of owning a specific car because it symbolizes status? And Mohau, I'll start with you.
So actually, with me, it's actually very recently. So I don't own a car just as yet, but I think the nature of my job has awarded me the opportunity to drive different test cars from different manufacturers. And I went to my grandmother's place with the car, and as I drove past, I had people clapping for me. So they were really impressed with the car, and they were like, it looks really good. It's an SUV, by the way. And for me, that in itself told me that, the kind of car that you drive communicates a lot. There's a message that it sends out. In that case, I think the car was a status symbol of success. I've made it, I drive a really nice car, and yeah, I'm somebody, basically. So yeah.
Interesting. Lufefe, in your case, when did you realize this pressure, status symbol?
Me, I grew up in it. I mean, Mtata.
From
where
day
I
dot.
come from day one. It's about what car do you drive. I mean, it's a small town. In those days, it was one big community. So cars were really, really a big thing. So even me, I knew that my first car can't mess around.
It can't just be a car. It has to be the car.
The car.
Okay. And Aldayne, in your case?
I think for me, it would have been when I purchased my first car at 21 years old. I come from the city of Durban, so the car culture in Durban is out of this world. Personal opinion, I don't think there's any other province that can compare to the quality of bills in Durban at the moment. And when I would sit in my friend group, the guy that bought his first vehicle, we were like talking amongst ourselves like, ooh, this guy spent this money on this vehicle. He could have got this, he could have got this, he could have got this. And that put pressure onto me thinking I had to go towards a specific brand, a specific type of vehicle, solely because I was hearing what the people around me was saying about the cars that other people bought. And when you're at that age and you're that young, you don't really take into consideration what's your budget and what's your pocket. You just really want to fit into society so your friends could say, hey, have you seen that guy's car? Rather than, have you seen that guy's car? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mohau, earlier on you mentioned the fact that you produced Buyer's Guide on Ignition TV, and quite obviously you saw interesting trends,
Yes,
buyer
that's right.
trends. What did you see in as far as emotional decisions were concerned, where people were making emotional decisions because of status?
Yeah. So, so people would write into Buyer's Guide looking for advice, right? Okay, here's this person has a budget of, for argument's sake, 250,000 Rand. They're looking for a car that takes them from point A to point B. It's fuel efficient, but the car should have a specific badge, a German badge. And then the advice would then be, or the sensible advice would then be, it makes sense to buy a smaller car that is within your budget than to buy a high mileage car. However, they'd want to justify them wanting to get a German car because it looks good and the interior is better than a compact car, or what do you call it? The way in which people would perceive me would be more desirable as opposed to buying a car that's within their budget. So I think then the emotional validation is what then overtakes practicality, and that's a trend that we saw a lot. And then having to convince someone that no, it makes more sense to buy a car that's brand new, has warranty, service plan, maintenance plan, than buy a high mileage car where it's probably out of maintenance, probably doesn't have a service plan, and that's like extra funds that you need to consider. But those were patterns that we saw quite a lot.
Now, where does this pressure come from? Is it from family? Is it social media? Is it friends? Where does it come from in your view, in terms of the experience that you have with Buyer's Guide?
Yeah, so I think it's multi-layered. So I think social media plays a very huge role. Social media is always, I want to look good. There's a certain kind of lifestyle I want to make people perceive I live up to. So I think social media plays a very huge role. But I think, family and friends play a role as well. And I think when it comes to buying a car, it communicates a message. The kind of car that you drive communicates a message. If you're driving a luxury car, or a German luxury car, people become friendlier, right? People want to associate themselves with you. But it's true, right? They want to associate themselves with you. They become more respectful as well. So I was driving an SUV from an Asian brand, and it looks really cool. Actually, it looks very futuristic as well. And I remember going to the gym. Funny enough, the car that I drive is actually a budget car. So I get to the gym, and as I'm parking, this car guard is like literally excited. He even goes as far as helping me park. And I'm like, I never really get this treatment when I'm driving my budget car. And I think it boils down to then is like, the excitement, or rather the treatment that you get from people. Is it really worth that what you pay monthly is far beyond what you can afford? When it comes to finances, buying a car is just not only, your monthly installments. There's insurance to consider.
Absolutely.
There's, fuel to consider as well. If a tire bursts or there's a pothole that you drive into and your tire bursts, you kind of need to pay for that tire from your own pocket. So there's that to also consider.
And I assume that feeling, you rationalized it for yourself beyond the security guard's excitement as you drove off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
There seems to be a thin line between what people can afford and, in most instances, what they end up actually buying, as you mentioned earlier on.
Yes.
In your experience with Buyer's Guide, where do people fall into this trap?
So I think it boils down to emotional validation, right? People want to get into, or let me rather phrase it this way. When someone has always had a desire to drive a certain car, whether or not the budget fits, for them it's a matter of, I just want to see myself in this car because it makes me feel good. I look good as well. And I think then emotional validation overrides practicality. Does it fit within the budget? Well, I don't really care. I'll figure that out, when the time comes. For as long as I'm inside this car and I look good, I feel good, that's what matters. And then the question that becomes is, the way you feel emotionally, is it something viable in the long run? Considering then installments that you have to pay as well every single month. So I think
people fall into that trap for those
100%. Yeah.
Aldayne, I'm gonna get into your story.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier on that you're from the city of Durban.
Yes.
We all know that Durbanites are crazy about their cars.
Yeah.
They go big.
I bought a 2014 model car in the year 2017, and I've had the car for 12 years. So I also succumbed to the pressures of wanting a car to portray a certain status in society. So, of course, I went German. not taking into consideration how I was going to afford this, not taking into consideration the term that I was going to be paying for this car. And then somewhere along the line, I realized I pulled a settlement letter out and realized, wait a minute, I am now owing less than what the car is currently valued in the market. And the reason why I pulled that settlement is because that car was still under warranty. I didn't want to fiddle and tinker with it at that point in time. So I was looking for something else that I could just fiddle with, like modifications, do some stuff, because I am a Durbanite after all, and people were judging me driving a stock car, So when I pulled out the settlement to see what I was owing and found out that I was owing less than what the car is currently valued, I made the calculated decision to let go of the car. I sold it in the year 2020, around June. COVID was just on the brink. We weren't sure what was going to be happening in terms of our jobs and stuff. So I decided to sell the car. I settled what I was owing to WesBank, and then with the change that I had, I went and bought a car that was now 15 years old at the time, and just ran that car for the year, still saving up that money that I was initially paying towards the installment. A year later, I now had this capital amount that I could buy a car that I was not paying a monthly installment on. Did a little bit of research, did a little bit of shopping around, still couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. Went back to the guy who I sold the car to and bought it back from him at a cheaper rate. And that was the story of that car, yeah.
And I mean, where did you get this information? What informed this decision to pull a settlement, to make the comparisons?
Yeah.
And where did you get that knowledge from?
It was actually because I was so broke at the time, I needed to figure out a way to change my lifestyle. I was missing out on family events because I couldn't travel to and from the affordability of driving between Durban and Gauteng. I could not spend enough time with my girlfriend, and nobody likes a broke boyfriend because you're driving around in a nice car, you're going down these beautiful roads, but you can't enter any of these restaurants there because you got no money to do so. So at the point of it, I got tired of living that way. I got tired of taking my entire earnings and putting it into a car. Yeah, I looked good driving on the freeway, but my petrol light was on half the time. So yeah, it all came down to coming to the realization, dude, you put yourself in a predicament that it's affecting your lifestyle. Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned that, one of your friends is choosing this route that you walked away from.
Yeah.
They've got an expensive car. You can see that they're struggling.
Yeah.
Again, it's a social pressure issue. Have you spoken to your friend about this?
I did. And before I even came on, I had a conversation with him and said, listen, I'm going to be saying your story on a podcast. Don't take offense to it. So he was pressured to buy a much more powerful car at the same time that I made my purchase. And I had the conversation with him because this guy could never ever come out with us. He'd have this beautiful car sitting in his driveway at home, and we would just see him washing it every weekend. Just washing it, coming for a drive around the area, and the car's back at home. He was catching a lift club to work because he was spending money on this car that he could not afford to maintain, he could not afford to drive, but the emotional understanding or the emotional feeling of owning it made him feel good. So when I did have the conversation with him, I was like, my guy, when is this going to change? When are you going to consider perhaps letting go of this car that's holding you back from so much in life and going into something that you can actually afford to drive around in? And his answer was, that's my problem to deal with. His answer was, what are people going to say? His answer was,
the usual.
I'm embarrassed, He was genuinely embarrassed to let go of the car just because of what people were going to say, So that was rather odd to me.
And it sounds like you walked away from the first engagement where you're trying to talk to him out of it.
Yeah, it was during that interim where I was making these changes. And I'm like, my guy, maybe you should consider this. Look at what I've done. Look at what I've pulled. Look at what I'm owing. Look at what it's selling for. Did you ever consider this? And it was just the misconception of thinking people were going to judge him or look down on him for selling this big branded car and going for something simpler that he was afraid of, which is very common in the car scene as well. People tend to do that, yeah.
And I assume, being the numbers guy, you actually also showed him the math.
I did. I was not afraid. I was pretty transparent when I pulled out these letters and I went back to him. He was a rather close friend where I could have these sort of conversations with him. And I was like, look at this, put this, add this, minus this, and this is what you're left with. Why don't you consider it? He was just afraid to take the risk at the time.
Sure. Now, in South Africa, the counter-argument to your story of rationally choosing a car that you can afford, that's within your means, where you do the total cost of ownership calculations.
Yeah.
The counter-argument is that, a good car, a German car, opens doors for you. You come across as more professional, as more respected in some instances, as we've heard. How do you respond to that?
I have a different perspective on that. What you drive to me doesn't necessarily determine your value or your credibility. Your knowledge and your skills will always carry the most credibility. I've met people that are driving expensive German cars that know nothing. And I've met people that are driving cars that are 50 years old that know everything. So if you're trying to compensate for your skills and knowledge by what you're driving, you're already in the wrong space. You got to consider the cost, you got to consider your value before you make that decision, thinking that a car is going to bring more opportunity to what you already have to offer.
Now, Lufefe, your audience ask a lot about Asian brands. What are the conversations they're having in as far as that is concerned?
So generally, as South Africans, we are brand conscious. So there's the household names of the German brands, the American brands that have been in the market for the longest time. And there's this influx of these Asian brands coming into the market now. So the initial feeling was, can you trust it? Is it durable? The designs are sort of very similar to the other traditional brands. But I've seen a trend now. I've got at least 6 friends driving these Asian cars, and they've got all the technology. They look really good, and the durability obviously will be determined over time. But it's changing.
It's changing.
It's
So are you saying that
changing.
the stigma is definitely changing?
Definitely. It's transforming. I mean, as little kids, you would know that this car's this car, this car's that car. With these Asian brands, we didn't know the names, but if you listen to your 10-year-olds, they're like, this is this one, this is this one. And you're like, huh? No, that's a Model 7, Model 8. I'm like, how do you know? Because obviously they're growing up in that environment where these vehicles have become mainstream, so to speak. So in 8 years' time, when they go and buy a car, or 10 years' time, that's not going to be a determining factor if it's the traditional brands or the Asian brands. They're just going to buy what they see in front of them, which is very smart of Asia to recognize that that would happen.
So they are normalizing in society the Asian
Fully.
brands in as far as your experience is concerned.
Fully.
Okay.
Fully.
And South Africa has when we talk about Asian brands, has a serious obsession with SUVs, and one always wonders, is it a matter of practicality in terms of how we live, or, is it just status dressed as utility? What are your thoughts on that?
There's the
Why
word
are we
utility.
so obsessed with SUVs?
Look, I mean, SUVs, in Xhosa you call it iskladav,
Okay.
heavyweight.
Okay.
So the status symbol comes back into play. If I'm driving an SUV and you driving a small car, I'm sort of looking down on you. Literally.
So it's that stigma.
Yes, definitely. If you have an SUV, you can appear to have made it, or you have actually made it.
And in as far as your audience are concerned, is it a practical decision that they make because they need the SUV, or is it a status thing? I think that's what I'm asking.
Well, I think it differs from individual to individual. We're always aspiring to have an SUV, You asked when we were, where we got this influence of pressures, social pressures of having these cars. So SUV was always, okay, when I grow up, I want this car, and an SUV. And the SUV always comes last because it's giving that last number vibe.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I get the practicality of if you're from the Eastern Cape, it's a mountainous area.
Yes.
Practically, you would need an SUV.
Yes.
But it sounds like people still get them for status.
Definitely. I mean, here in the city, there's no real gravel roads or a real need for an SUV, but every second or third car is an SUV.
And where do EVs sit in this, layer or scale of social pressure in terms of status?
So these EV cars, even with the high-end ones, you can see it's an EV just by looking at it. They look different. So you could have this ultimate German brand. There's the petrol version and there's the EV version. So as a form of status, I think that you're going for the petrol car because, like I say, if you're really a car fundi, you can see it on first sight. For me, what I've heard from feedback from our audience, the biggest issue is the sound. They are as quiet as a church mouse. So when you drive a car, you want to hear that oomph. I'm sure you can
Verpa.
agree. The
Verpa.
verpa, exactly. So these EVs, you'll drive like, and you're going 120, 140 k's an hour. So first order of business,
Okay.
what does it sound like? I mean,
Interesting.
you get these cars that put the sound of the exhaust in the speaker of the car
Yeah.
because they realize the importance of the sound. Yes, it's not the genuine sound of the car, it's just traveling, but because it sounds like what I want it to, I'm okay with it.
So the sound matters.
Too much.
Now that's interesting because from a pricing point, they're not the most accessible, the ones that we have. So one would think that because they are not accessible, it's a status symbol, it's not a budget car, and culturally people would move towards that if they care about status. Your thoughts on that?
People don't even know how much EVs are. That's what I would say.
Well, as we close off, I just want to ask each of you, when you reflect on your respective journeys, what is that one question that a person should ask themselves when they are faced with a decision? Do I buy what I afford, or do I still go, in terms of what I feel, the status, the emotion, even if it's outside my affordability? What should I ask myself?
I think for me, the one question I would put, whether it's EV or whether it's ICE, can I afford the maintenance on this vehicle? Once your warranty plans and your service plans fall away, I think that's something that a lot of consumers take for granted. So that one question, can I afford the maintenance? Before you make the purchase, call around on parts, call around on services, call around on tire changes, and consider that maintenance cost, because essentially, if you look after something, it's going to last you a long time. If you're not going to look after it, you're going to sit with problems in a year. So can I afford the maintenance?
Mohau, thank you.
I think on my end, I would ask when the emotional or when the excitement wears off, is this still practical in the long run? I think that's something to consider. Yeah.
Not spur of the moment decisions
100%.
that you have to live with long term.
100%.
Interesting. Lufefe?
So my first car was a sports car. My second car is a starter pack. And I miss that feeling of the sports car. So for me personally, I'm still wrong or right, driven by the emotional feeling that I get from driving this beautiful car. It's not even about people. It's about myself. So me, I will just work towards affording this car. I'll rather wait.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Aldayne, Mohau, and Lufefe. There you have it. Is buying a car a status symbol? Now, each of the guests have given an account of their true life stories in terms of the experience. I do hope that when you're faced with the same situation, is my budget okay, or do I go with my emotions? You can choose wisely, because an emotional decision now can lead to difficulty, as you have to live with this installment for quite a while. Thanks for listening. We hope that you found it useful. Now go and subscribe to be notified when our next informative episode is available.
WesBank talks finance.